Hey guys, this is Teryn at the Girlz Inc. studio in Las Vegas, and welcome to Tatter-a-fact. Today I have a super interesting guest. I got a lawyer, and her name is Gina Bongiovi. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Bongiovi.
Bongiovi.
Yeah,
Not
so
Van Halen, Bongiovi.
well, yeah, David Lee Roth, Van Halen. So were you more of a Van Halen fan or a Bon Jovi fan?
I was pretty true to that. I was a Bon Jovi fan.
You're a Bon Jovi. Well, he's cuter.
He is cuter.
He is cuter. Yeah,
He's
yeah.
aging better.
And he's aging, but than David Lee Roth.
Right?
I know. I'll have to Google and see what he looks like now. But yeah. So, and I learned this from you because we were talking a little bit before the show so you spell your name Bongiovi.
Right.
And he spells his Bonjovi.
Right.
But you
For the band.
For the band.
Yeah. Because his name is spelled the same way my name is spelled.
Right.
But it gets butchered on the regular. So he just phonetically spelled it for the band.
Bonjovi.
J.
Yeah. Bon Jovi.
Yeah, it's hard to screw up when it's B-O-N, like
Yeah.
Bon Jovi. You can sound it out.
Well, I think
like hooked on phonics.
Yeah, no offense to you, but I guess it looks cooler on an album cover, right?
Oh, for sure.
Spelled like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it does. So you could be related.
Supposedly distant cousin, but I've not had
You
an
got
opportunity to
you
confirm.
got to the DNA thing.
I know, but the people I know I'm related to, I don't want to be related to. So I don't want to find out about others.
Yeah. No, but that would be interesting. That would be
interesting.
interesting. I did the DNA thing, and I came up with nothing. My dad was scared to death because he's in the military and he was stationed overseas. So I kept teasing him, well, Dad, I'm going to find out if I got a half brother or sister somewhere. He was like, and I didn't. So, So
I have two friends that found like adopted families, like bio families.
Yeah. And it happens all the time. And what's so funny, why I was teasing my dad is because I had just watched that like on a Dr. Phil or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She just did a genealogy test just for the hell of it, expecting nothing. And come to find out, she had a half sister.
Oh my God.
And her father didn't know. No one knew. And it was when he was stationed overseas. I want to say in Vietnam. Yes.
I want to be a fly on the wall at that next
Yes.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And it was like a 2-part series. And it did all work out really well.
Oh,
I mean,
good.
they met. I mean, she flew over to the United States. She met the dad, and it was a beautiful thing. I remember the dad being really emotional and crying, and it ended up being a beautiful thing. But I'm sure it's not always a beautiful thing, right? You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Gina. So you're me and Kat's lawyer. We've been using you about 3 years. You're one of our lawyers. So if you and I thought it'd be really cool to have you on here because. There was a time when the PMU industry, we were we saw clients and stuff. There wasn't as many business opportunities, I guess is what I'm trying to say, as there are now. And I've seen my industry really evolve into an industry that is full of amazing business opportunities and collaborations and developing your own products and all kinds of things. And I just see such a need for fellow artists, to have lawyers, and so many don't, or they're afraid of lawyers, right? They have misconceptions about lawyers. So I wanted you on here just to like shoot the shit and talk about maybe some of these topics that people would love to know on. So if you just want to give people like a little background about you, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised here in Las Vegas, which I feel like is becoming less and less.
Like less than 1%, right?
Less than 1%. But now all the people I know who I grew up with are moving back.
Yeah.
It's a hard city to move away from. But I went to UNLV. I started law school. Halfway through law school, I thought law school was kind of the path to self-employment, which may resonate with some of your audience. So I really wanted to be my own boss. I knew I didn't really make a really great employee. And all of my references for attorneys as I was growing up had their own practices. So I was blissfully unaware of the life of a typical lawyer, which is grinding it out, no client interaction, not even the senior partner doesn't even know your name, not absolutely zero work-life balance. So, and it was only halfway through law school that one of the professors explained, here's what your life is going to be like as a new lawyer. And I went, oh God, I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque.
What did I get myself into?
What have I gotten myself into? And I was halfway through and there was no way I could justify, dropping out and doing something else. And that's when UNLV started pairing a law degree with an MBA. Mm-hmm. And I had a business degree from UNLV already. That was my undergrad. So I go back to the business school, I get admitted to the MBA program. And then during the MBA program, I have the opportunity to start a business. I'm actually offered a job to execute on a marketing plan I designed. And I said, hey, this is my opportunity to be my own boss. So I started a business. It grew and grew and grew. And I found myself, like most business owners, needing legal advice. Yeah. So I asked somebody who also grew up here for a referral to another attorney. And it was the equivalent of like, I've got a toothache and he sends me to a podiatrist. Yeah. It was the wrong attorney and he was a complete jerk and, probably an hourly rate I couldn't afford anyway. And I walked out of that office and I like it happened yesterday, on the phone with everybody I knew who had a small business. Who do you go to for legal advice? And this was 2008, which, if you recall, was not a great time to be starting a business, owning a business, running a business, even being employed because people were getting laid off and trying to turn their hobbies into livelihoods. Right. And I remember, so I said, well, there's nobody in the market that's really helping small business owners and startups. And you would have a business that would say, yeah, we've got a law firm on retainer, but it cost me $450 for a half an hour of small talk. Yeah. So we never call them, which doesn't do you any good. All it's doing is locking up your retainer and, and you're never getting the value from it. So I thought, well, it looks like I'm going to have to start a law firm after all. So I had the law firm and the other company and I grew them together until I had to choose one. And I joked that I chose the one with less drama. And then I sold what had blossomed at that point in time into a modeling agency to somebody who is now a client of my law firm.
Oh, that's interesting. So a modeling agency.
A modeling agency. Yeah. It started as a marketing company and then it blossomed into a modeling agency and it was this whole thing. So that's kind of the impetus for me starting the firm is there was just this gap in the market and nobody was out there in an affordable, predictable way. So I came out of the gate charging flat fees, which we still do. We charge hourly, like as a very last resort, only when we can't control how much time we spend on something. But we try to lend because that's usually the biggest barrier for people hiring lawyers. Is first of all, they're scary.
Yeah, people are afraid of lawyers. People are afraid of mechanics, right? It's like car mechanics. They have a bad reputation. No offense.
It's true. No, I mean, I totally get it. I mean, I totally get it. So I came out of the gate. I said, I'm charging flat fees. This is not, and that was both for my benefit and for the client's benefit. Right. We're going to take as much mystery out of this process as possible.
Just be transparent. Just be super transparent and approachable. Yeah. But I think probably you having your own small business and bootstrapping that from the ground up, that probably makes you a really good lawyer. That probably make different than the rest because you've had that experience being a small business owner, and it's scary all alone being a small business owner, starting your own business. Oh yeah. Because you're responsible, for bringing in income for you and your family, and then once you start hiring employees, then you're responsible for their paychecks
and their families.
So you've done all that. Yeah. So I think that's what makes you a really good lawyer for businesses like mine, because you've done it, Gina, and a lot of lawyers have not. I mean, right out of college, they go straight to, just being a lawyer. They don't have.
Yeah, we call it K through JD, where you never worked. You just went from kindergarten through your law degree, graduated, and then turning around without having real world experience is really hard. And the other part about that is in law school, we're taught, and it's drilled into our brains to be risk averse. Like, if there's any sort of way that you might lose money on this transaction or lose your intellectual property or whatever, don't do it. But that's not how being a business owner works. You have to understand the risks. You have to mitigate them. You have to, take calculated risks in order to grow.
I was just going to say that. I mean, I do a lot of different lectures and stuff, and one of them is, as I talk about, you have to take calculated risks. Mm-hmm. We're entrepreneurs. I am, like if you said, if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur all the way. Mm-hmm. Kat's more of a business owner, but I'm that dreamer that I stay up till 4 dreaming. I'm a manic thinker. I'm the creator. I am that entrepreneur, and I would not be where I am today if I did not take calculated risks.
Well, and that's the key. Calculated, not just for the hell of it. Not,
Right.
hey, I'm going to sign this without thinking, or hey, we're going to fly by the seat of our pants. Calculated
risk. Okay. So I know so you're a business lawyer, but under the umbrella of business lawyers, there's a lot of different specialties like tax lawyers, contracts lawyers, merger and acquisition, things like that. Right. So do you have what's your specialty? Do you have a couple specialty, like plastic surgeons, right? Like you don't want to pick a plastic surgeon maybe that does everything.
Right.
You want your nose, eyes, boobs, butts, and
maybe they'll do it all at once.
Or maybe they'll do it all at once and give you a discounted rate. But so I was wondering, is it the same thing with an attorney? Like, I know you're a business lawyer, but in that umbrella, do you have your specialties?
Right. There's definitely different. So as you know, there's criminal law, family law, estate planning, business. And there are a lot of attorneys who will dabble also in business while they're doing all those other things.
Okay.
To me, business is broad enough that dabbling in any of those other things that are not related to business freaks me out. Within business, to answer your question, you're right. There's contract lawyers, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling of businesses, basically. Intellectual property lawyers, which patent attorneys and trademark attorneys are all often not the same thing because you have to take a different patent bar. There's bankruptcy attorneys, tax lawyers. We are pretty general business. So we do M&A work. We do trademark work. We eat, sleep, and breathe contracts. Right. We don't litigate, which is key because in our opinion, transactional attorneys like us who are contracts and not going to court have a different mindset and a different way to approach things than the people who do go to court.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the person, it's a different personality. It's a very different
Are they
thing.
more aggressive?
They're more, not across the board. I'm painting with very broad brushes here, but it's just a different where it's, quite frankly, litigators make money on people fighting.
Yeah. Okay.
So our approach is we are preventive. So we're the personal trainer that keeps you in shape.
Gotcha.
So we work proactively to make sure that your contracts are in place. Negotiators making sure that you don't go to court. We are not we're doing triple bypass in the back of an ambulance, which is kind of how litigators operate because anytime, and I've got a good friend who's a litigator and we refer a lot of business to him and he's like, basically I take a giant pile of shit that my client gives me and I try to make it a smaller pile of shit. It's like what most litigators do.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I know I told you earlier we could cuss a little bit on here. So
I'll try to keep it down. I was quoting.
No, I get it. So you're a general business lawyer. Okay. And for me and Kat, for Girlz Inc., that's basically you've done contracts. Contracts, and you wrote the whole liability thing on my online training. You did all that. I actually, a couple weeks ago, we won't say for what, but a couple weeks ago I sent you a contract because in PMU, like I collab, and sometimes I'm collabing with big, huge, powerful companies that have a lot of money. I mean, these are big companies, and what I have found is, and thank God for you, because you redlined a lot of stuff. And redlining, for anybody who doesn't know, so I got this particular contract on a collab that I'm doing. And it's long and lengthy, and I'm not a lawyer, so a lot of it is like Greek, yep. And so I send it to you. And you redline, you put everything in red that sticks out to you as something that is not in my best interest. And then we take that and we send it back to the company. And it's almost like a negotiation, kind of like buying a house. Like they say, okay, we'll agree to this and this, but this and this and this needs to stay. We send it back to you. And then, so it's this back and forth thing. So basically you come to a compromise. Right? Because the company that sends me the contract, it's not unethical what they're putting in there, but it's always to their advantage.
Of course.
Maybe there are cases where it is unethical. In this case, it wasn't anything unethical, but
I mean, if it goes so far in that direction, it's what we call an unconscionable contract. But in those collaborations, and that is what I am starting to see more and more because little guys like you and me are able to access product development. We're starting to manufacture our own things. We're designing our own things.
Right.
The world has changed. I mean, things like 3D printers, those types of things have made it more accessible for the average
regular
bear
person
to become to kind of get in the mix with the manufacturers. But then you have
Right.
these big boys out there
Yes.
that are operating, and they have entire legal departments, and so oftentimes when I see those contracts, like the first thing I look at is the intellectual property,
Right.
because normally it's your creativity and they're executing.
Right.
That's 9 times out of 10 how those collaborations work in a situation like for you
Yeah,
and your audience.
yeah.
It's like, I'm the idea person and they're going to make it happen.
Right.
But oftentimes those contracts say that your ideas then belong to them,
Belong to them. Yeah.
which is obviously the first thing I
Right,
look for,
right.
and the first thing you have to be really careful of.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this. If I don't think so the contract that I recently sent you, there was nothing unconscionable in there. No. They weren't trying to own my intellectual property or anything like that. But there was a few things that, in their favor. Mm-hmm. And you pointed that out, and we sent, and they agreed to like the changes. It was a pretty easy. I've never had anything so easy. Right. But we weren't asking for anything unfair.
Right.
In our response. But if I sent it to you and you did see something in there that was unconscionable, am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. Unconscionable. Okay.
Unconscionable, yeah.
I'm not going to say it a third time.
We'll
I just wanted to say the word authenticator. I couldn't say Google authenticator for the longest time. But so would you recommend, look, this is unconscionable. This is unethical. I wouldn't even do business with this person if they're trying to like slip this by you. Is it that?
That's usually not my first reaction.
Okay.
My first reaction would be, Teryn, there's some shady stuff in this contract that we need to push back on.
Okay.
And then oftentimes if it's really bad, I will just, instead of sending the contract back through you, I will ask to be introduced to their legal department so that we can talk.
Gotcha. Okay.
And be like, you are not screwing my client over this way.
Right.
And half the time in those big companies, the attorneys don't even know what's in their own contracts. They just use these templates over and over again.
Right.
And it's not until they like stand their ground on something and are like, we're not changing it, that I think is unconscionable, that I will tell you don't move forward.
with
I'm going
this.
to try to give the other side the benefit of the doubt.
And you're a badass, I can tell. And for people listening, this is the first time I've met you in person.
I know.
It's
I
crazy. mean, we've talked on the phone, we've emailed, you've done a lot of stuff for us. I mean, we liked you right away. We just knew you were our lawyer for a lot of things going forward. And we wanted to meet you. We've met, some of our other lawyers, and
But we all just did lose 18 months into a weird
we
vortex.
did, yeah, we did. But I can tell you're a badass. I can tell. Yeah. Well, you're Italian.
Well, that helps.
I got a couple of Italian friends, and they're both badasses. So yeah, I guess that does help. I did a contract. I didn't do a contract, but maybe about 10 years ago, I had producers of a reality show come in from California approach me to do a reality show with my studio. And so they flew in a team, and they followed me around the studio for, a couple days, and they did this thing called a sizzle reel. Mm-hmm. And then they contact me, and they want to take the next step. So they send me a contract. And I went to a lawyer at the time, referred to me, and in that contract, yes, they were going to own my logo, my brand, Girlz Inc. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was all kinds of other things in there, Gina, that really scared the shit out of Kat and I. And we just decided, I didn't even want anything redlined. I didn't want to go back to them. I just was like, not only no, but hell no.
Right.
What they wanted Kat and I to do, the hours of filming, and I think for
free, by the way.
For free. And you got to agree to have cameras like in your home, in your car, in this. You had to.
And then they get to take whatever footage they get, and they get to do whatever they want. They
edit
can
it.
even make you, put you in a bad light.
Yeah.
And that's how most reality shows are produced.
Yes.
Is they make somebody the enemy, somebody the villain.
Right. And when this first started, when they first approached me, I told them, okay, but I want to concentrate on, because this was not the first production company to reach out to me. It was the third or fourth, and they all, when they learned I was married to Kat, they all got really hyper focused on the lesbian thing, which pisses me off. Yeah. And so with this company, I just put it right.
Like, look at all the things that we're doing, and this is the part.
And this is the really the thing you want to focus on, is that we're lesbians, and so I was really upfront with them right from the get go, and I'm like, look,
because you're
like,
a badass too.
Yeah, and I'm like, no lesbian shit, no lesbian drama. We're not going to, ain't happening. But in the contract, it did say we had to make like 2 or 3 appearances in a lesbian bar with lesbian people. It was a whole lesbian clause,
Oh my
Gina.
gosh.
Yeah, a lesbian clause.
Truman Show for
Yeah. And I was like, oh,
lesbian clause.
yeah, there was this whole thing. I guess lesbians bring good ratings, I guess.
Well, I mean, especially, and that's how they're going to bill it. You're going to see commercials for your reality show.
Yeah, and they're going to bill it as
Look at this lesbian couple that owns this empire.
Yeah, it
Why?
was crazy, you know? So I don't know. And I think the misconception is reality people, you know, they become stars and they make millions of dollars. And like 95, I think the percentage is even higher, do not.
Oh, yeah.
They do not, you know? So
It's just like any actor, you know, trying to go to LA, the percentage of people who actually make it big are,
Yeah.
it's a fraction.
it's a
of
fraction.
percent.
Yeah. And it's the first 3 years, you don't even make any money. They pay you like $40,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
but you lose money on your professional side because you're filming all the
Because you're
time.
too busy
You're too busy
all the
filming.
time. Yeah.
So you really can't see your clientele. Yeah. So it ended up being a big mess and we got out and yeah, so I'm not interested in reality shows. So that was
fair.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So what is your, before I say that, I was going to say referrals. I think referrals are big. My estate lawyer, Tiffany, referred me to, I needed a general business lawyer. This is like 3-4 years ago. And she referred me to a lawyer, a gentleman, and it was fine that he was a boy. We you know, we
Boys are fine.
Boys are okay. We have no problems with boys.
Unless they're jerks.
Yeah, unless they're jerks. But when we started telling him what we needed, it turns out he was an employment attorney. Right. And so he was very forthright and upcoming and said, this is not my wheelhouse. My specialty is this. And he referred me to you. He said, you'd be perfect for Gina Bongiovi. And he spoke very highly of you. And then that's how we met you. Yeah. So when you were talking earlier about some attorneys will dabble in this and dabble in this, and they'll take on whatever comes to them. And this was an attorney, obviously, that had really good, strong ethics and referred me to the right place.
Which is one of those red flags that as your audience is going out and looking for advisors of any capacity, I was presenting for a while back at the law school I attended about how to start your own law firm and how to go out and get clients and things like that. And this guy that I went to school with handed me his business card. And on the front of the business card was all his contact information. On the back of the business card was literally every single potential practice area on planet Earth listed.
that he did.
And I looked at him and I said, do you do all of this, including like maritime law?
Yeah.
Do you know where we live? Like
right.
we're in Las Vegas. There's no, mineral rights, the whole thing. And he was like, oh yeah, and I went, okay, thank you for good luck to you and your malpractice actions that are going to be.
Yeah. So what I would want to tell my listeners, which are mostly PMU artists, right, is it would be the same as if you are permanent makeup artist that does nothing but powder brow, the powder brow technique, but you have a client that walks in one day and she wants hair strokes. And you say, yes, that's not your forte, right? You do powder brows. So it's sort of the same thing. So I guess that's the first advice we would give listeners if they're looking for a lawyer is they want to pair themselves with a lawyer that specializes in their type of business. Right. And if you see a lawyer that says, I do this, if I do boobs, lips, butts, ankles, the whole body, hair transplant.
I'll do your shoulder replacement too.
Hair transplant and all that. And by the way, I also, can test your eyesight.
Better one or better two.
Yeah. Then run. You want a lawyer that specializes in what you're
and you're
needing.
a good example of somebody who's recognized that you have. So you've got an attorney that only handles your trademark work, and you've got an attorney who, and employment law, as an example, does fall under kind of general business law, and we know enough to be dangerous. But as something gets too complicated, we will enlist the help of I think I might know the lawyer you're talking about. We'll enlist the help of that employment lawyer,
right?
Because we also know, even though we do practice broadly in business, we also know where our boundaries are. And we're similarly honest with clients to say, this is
Not in my wheelhouse.
This is not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We can still serve as your point of contact. We're not just going to dump you off on somebody unless it's appropriate.
Yeah.
But we'll still stay involved and make sure that we can quarterback this so you get the right advice you need from an attorney that we have vetted, instead of just sending you out in the world and saying, good luck.
Yeah, because I think that's important. I think it's really, really important. Kat, we have an estate lawyer that handles, all that, your living will and trust and, all that stuff. And when you start, when you have a business and you start, your business starts growing, your company starts growing, then liabilities start growing.
Yeah.
And so some people, Kat and I got to the place where it was advised we took the business out of our name. We took, lots of things out of our name and we put them into trusts and things like that. So that's where Tiffany came in. And then, as you mentioned, I do have a trademark attorney. And now I have you, who's like my contracts and, other things like that I need for, business. And so all that stuff. So I think that's really, really, really important. Okay. So let me get to my questions here. So, I think there's a misconception too, that only big companies need lawyers, or only companies that have money. Well, you have a lawyer, Teryn, you're Girlz Inc. or, and that's not true, right?
And I get it, because it's a chicken or the egg phenomenon, because in theory, once you're in business, you're not a big enough target for somebody to come after you or for something to happen unless you achieve, some level of revenue or some number of employees, or unless you have a commercial space or whatever. And unfortunately, that's not the case. As soon as you start a business, you can be a target. And whether it's something, the employees are filing fraudulent wage claims, or you've got, like I could run through a whole laundry list of horror stories with some of my very small business clients that have encountered that they really needed. And now I was on the scene with them, but I know there's a ton of businesses out there that are winging it.
Yeah. In our business, it could be someone just happy not with their eyebrows and they want to sue you or take you to court. It could be, it can be copyright infringement in my industry. There's people stealing our photos and our work. I mean, I've had that happen multiple times. I have got a case going on right now. Someone using very close to the Girlz Inc. name. And so it's constant, like in our industry. Yeah. So, and those are battles that, like, I believe in delegating, right? I think you're so busy running your company, you have to be focused. And when something like that happens, Gina, when there's a copyright issue, an infringement on your trademark, and things like that, it bothers you so much. You can get caught up in that and in your mind, and that's all you think about, and you become obsessed with it, and you're trying to fight it on your own, and then that takes you away from running your company and growing your company. So I think there's a lot of cases where, I mean, if it's just you renting a 250 square foot room and you see clients, you don't have a store, you don't have anything like that, you service clients, there may be a time that you need a lawyer. So let's segue into, even if there's not an instant going on right now that requires them to have a lawyer, before a situation occurs, should they be out there reviewing lawyers, looking at lawyers, make a connection and a relationship with a lawyer? And if so, how does one do that if they're not going to use a lawyer's service? Because time is money. Right. So if I was a small company, I didn't need you at this moment, but I wanted to make a relation. I have a good relationship with a lawyer and have you in my pocket in case. How would one do that with you?
So with me in particular, we have a series of different, or a bunch of choices as to how you can work with us. We've got, small kind of subscription model things where we talk once a month, or we meet up once a month to make sure that we are getting ahead of stuff.
And those things are like affordable for someone.
Yeah, it starts at $250 a month.
So for $250 a month, because we have a lot of art. We have probably 200, 300 PMU artists just here in Clark County. And we have a big listener list here in Vegas. So, So if someone here, now let me ask you this before I go on. Do they have to be in state?
Not necessarily. We do have a lot of clients that we help out us who are not here in Nevada. It kind of depends on the rules of the state that they're in, whether
Okay.
they will allow us to work. So it's kind of on a case by case basis, but we've got clients in like Utah and Arizona and California and Texas. And
So someone listening to this podcast, they like your vibe. They're like, wow, I like her answers. She seems cool. Teryn likes her. So she must be okay. And they need contracts read over, or they need help with you if they're launching an online class and they need you to write, because you should never launch an online class without that legal liability jargon that
right.
you did for me. Being out of state, that would be totally cool. Okay. So in town, if someone wants to just make a relationship with you, it could be as little as $250 a month. And now they have a relationship with Gina Bongiovi.
Right. But everybody who's listening, regardless of whether they're here or elsewhere, should have, you don't want your first call to a lawyer to be when the shit has already hit the fan.
Right.
You want to have a relationship. You want to have somebody you can call. Ideally, you're involving that person before there's an emergency, so that you can head off the emergency.
Yeah.
Like we had a client one time, and I cannot explain this to this day because he was paying us handsomely every month. He had a very big operation. We had a lot. He had access to the whole firm, and we were essentially their in-house legal department. We just didn't take up space in their office. So he was paying us handsomely every month, and he called one day and said, I wired $250,000 to a web design firm in Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't have a website. And we're like, well, when did you wire the money? Oh, 3 months ago, when we were involved.
So shouldn't he have ran that by you? Like,
he didn't have a contract.
He didn't have a contract.
He didn't even have a contract. He just wired $250,000.
Oh my goodness.
To some random company. Cause like Oklahoma's no offense to Oklahoma listeners, but like that's not really known for its creative hotbed of creatives. Right. So that's the kind of stuff that we try to get ahead of.
Right.
So even if you, and the way you would find somebody is, first of all, every business owner should have a team. You should have a banker that you can call,
right,
whose cell phone number you have.
Yep.
So not a Wells Fargo, not a B of A. I preferred local banks because you can actually get somebody, and they do really truly care about the prosperity and the success of small businesses in the
like where you have your business account.
Where you have the business account. Yeah.
Yeah. And you should have a banker.
A person you can call. And I'm not talking the private wealth where you have to have $1 million on account. Right. I'm talking just a human being that you can call and say, hey, there's an overdraft, or hey, I got charged. Somebody bounced their check to me. Can you help me out? The banker, the CPA.
Yes.
Because as soon as you're a business owner, this is not your TurboTax. Even though you can do your taxes on TurboTax, you shouldn't, because there are more complications.
Yes. I'm going to have my accountant on here after tax season. We're going to really get into that. So I love that you're mentioning that.
Very important. Insurance. You want an insurance
yes,
broker, eventually a financial advisor. Once you start making all the money, you got to figure out what to do with it. And a business lawyer.
Yes.
And ideally, even more so, all of those people should work together.
Yes.
So I commonly will conference call with my client, their CPA, maybe their banker if they're doing any sort of financing, me, so that we can all triage anything that's going on, make sure that the advice I'm giving doesn't fly in the face of what the CPA is saying, and vice versa. Yep. Those are the kinds of relationships that you want to forge with the people. And so if you have a CPA you really like, ask the CPA if they know a lawyer. If you have a lawyer you really like, ask a lawyer if they know a CPA. Because typically you can tamp down a lot or reduce a lot of the legwork that you have to do as the business owner by asking for referrals like you did.
But it's true. What you said is true. I mean, it took, and this doesn't come overnight. I don't want people to get overwhelmed. Right. Oh my God, I have to get a banker. I have to get this. I have to get that. I have to get that. It comes over time. You start with one thing first, maybe a banker, and then probably a CPA would be next. Yes. So, you're paying in your quarterly taxes, you're not getting in trouble with the IRS, you learn what's a write-off, what's not a write-off. And then maybe a lawyer. You just one thing at a time get these people in place. And with Kat and I, we do have that team. We have one additional person to that team. Is I also have a bookkeeper, along with a CPA, and she's in all my accounts. She has access to my PayPal account, my Amex business, my Chase account, everything, which was really weird. But she's been with me 8 years now. She works very closely with my accountant
Yeah.
and does the P&Ls. And I'll tell you, it's such a beautiful thing when you don't have to deal with your own taxes and P&Ls and this and that. We just, like, Leanne just does everything and puts together these beautiful quarterly P&Ls. I mean, and sends them over to Lisa, our accountant, and then Lisa deals with our financial advisor, and it's just a beautiful thing.
Once you get to that point, it is a beautiful thing. Because I remember the first thing I did, the first sort of outside person that I hired, before I even hired somebody to help me, like an assistant, I hired a bookkeeper. Because while I can do my books in QuickBooks, it was not the highest and best use of my time.
Right.
I hated it. And therefore, to a certain extent, if you hate it, you're probably not going to excel at it either.
No, you're not going to excel at it.
And then to your point about delegation, having somebody else handle that, who has the expertise, who does it on a daily basis, then freed me up to go do more work, make more money, so that I could then hire somebody else, and then you start growing.
Yeah, and that's for sure. And I think I can relate. Just so many people can relate with me. I might have all these things in place now, but I'm almost 22 years in the business. And I only started putting these things in place like 10 years ago, Lisa, to be perfectly candid with people. I think the first 10 years I fought it. It was overwhelming to me. I felt I couldn't afford these people, these professionals around me. And I was trying to do everything myself, and which left me burnt out.
Right.
And it drained my creative juices. That's all I can say,
Well, and the benefit of being a business owner is to have the autonomy and be your own boss and do those kinds of things. But if you're burn the candle at both ends, and if you feel like a worn out dish rag at the end of the day, like why?
Yeah.
What's
and
the
you
point?
get used to having these professionals as an expense. You get, at first it's a little like, but you get accustomed to it and you get used to it. When you see the amount of work that they do and the amount of time you now have available to work on your course or go do this or just be with your family, it's worth that expense. So that's what I would stress to people is to delegate. If you're in a position to start delegating these responsibilities out to professionals and start one at a time so it's not overwhelming.
There's actually a little exercise I learned in a mastermind group I was part of many years ago where for like 2 weeks you keep a notepad, you carry it around with you, and you write down every single thing that you do for like 2 weeks, which seems very tedious. And it is. And then you make several columns and you say, okay, is this immediately revenue generating or is it not? And if it's not, that should go on the list of the things that you should delegate. The next column is, are you good at it or are you not? And if you're also not good at it, delegate it. And do you enjoy doing it or not?
Yeah.
Because there could be something that is, maybe not immediately revenue generating that you're really good at,
right,
that you hate.
Yeah.
And so those things, so anytime you have like zeros in all three columns, that becomes the list of the things you first delegate.
Yeah.
And that's a good way of honing in, because as business owners, and I remember feeling it myself, like I was just so overwhelmed with everything, and I was hiring virtual assistants, and I was trying to hire like a receptionist and somebody to just take some of that like tasky stuff off my plate. And I finally was giving up, and I was introduced to somebody, and she approached me exactly the way, because I was so burnt out. She said, just send me something. And if you like how I handle it, send me something else. I went, okay, fine. And then before I knew it, I was dumping everything, and my revenue went up 104% the first year I had her.
Yeah.
So it seems counterintuitive that you're expending this money on advisors or help or assistants or whatever, but it comes out because it frees you up to do the stuff that you're actually good at that is making you money.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That was me. Mine was Olivia. I hired Olivia, and she just took over all these things I was trying to do myself. The marketing, which I love.
Sure.
I don't hate it.
Oh, yeah.
I like making flyers. I like the marketing. It's creative, and it's my company that I get to kind of boast and market and have fun with. But it was just so time consuming, like what I'm really good at and what no one else could do. I knew I could find somebody that could get my vibe and end up taking that role from me and be very, very good at it. And we brought on Willow recently because it's getting even overwhelming for Olivia. So, but no one can write educational content
Right.
on our craft, on tattooing, right? There's no one else in the company that can do that. Only I can do, tattoo,
Right.
train, write the content. And so I needed to be free from everything else to be able to do that. And so it worked out really, really well. I think before I ask you my next question, I just also wanted to mention, we did mention a financial advisor. And I want everybody to know too, it's not only rich people or people with a lot of money that have financial advisors.
Oh, I got a story about that too.
Yeah. I mean, you can be making a very modest income and still you should have a financial advisor that helps you set up maybe a 401k for yourself, a Roth, whether, it's traditional or what's the other one? IRA. And just helps you maybe some small stocks, just starting in there a little bit. Just get your money in the system so you're earning some compound interest, and it doesn't take a lot of money. You don't need a lot of money to start that. You can start with very little money.
That is a huge misconception that you have to show up with 2 bags with dollar signs on them like in the cartoons.
Yes.
That is not the case.
No, that is not the case.
The way I got my financial advisor, she was a client of mine, and I got divorced. And I divorced my retirement plan because he worked for the police department. I was like, oh, we're good. We got a pension. We got whatever. I don't have to worry about it. Then we got divorced. And I was like, oh my God.
And then you have no pension plan.
I got nothing. Like I haven't saved anything. And I got student loans and I've got this whole thing. So I called her one day and I said, I have 2 nickels. Can you help me make them 4?
Yeah. No, that's true. And I got my financial advisor, I think maybe 12 or 13, 14 years ago. And it was at Fidelity and she was free. Yeah. And I think I started with $1,000, Gina. I put $1,000 into a little Fidelity account and I met with her and it was all free. And then you just, you add to it, you add what you can to it monthly and it's grown from there.
Yeah. And the key thing with that, and not that I'm trying to pretend like I'm a financial advisor because I'm not, but the compounding interest, like the earlier you start, it's like just start. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be this, huge life-changing thing, but just start because the compounding interest over time, the earlier you start, time works in your favor.
Yeah, no, that's true. I see in my industry, the potential to make a lot of money is there for some artists, or a handsome income anyway. And so it's one thing to make it and generate it, but it's another to
keep it
and
there's
make
a
it
difference.
grow
I just had this
you.
Conversation with a financial advisor earlier this week. He said there's a difference between income and wealth.
Yes.
Because he's got a physician client who makes $1 million a year and his net worth is $400,000. Because it's like a sieve. The money comes in and the money goes out. And he's not 100% sure what he spends it on, but it's building the wealth and it's building the retirement, because I don't want to be, most lawyers, we got to die at our desks. That is not my plan here.
Right.
And there's some lawyers, even here in town who are in their 90s that are still showing up to the office. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I know. And I might be in a worse position than you because you get to a certain age and I'm going to be tattooing an eyebrow and my hand's going to be shaking and shit, I think you can only get so strong of a magnification on those loops I wear. So yeah, your time's limited in your career, and then who the hell wants to work the rest of their life, even if you love what you do?
Sure.
I mean, you do want some time to go.
It's having the autonomy and the freedom to decide.
Yeah.
That's the key. So you don't want to continue tattooing because you have to continue tattooing because you got to pay your bills.
Right.
You want to continue tattooing because you want to.
Because
your bills are paid.
Yeah.
And you can travel and you can retire comfortably or whatever, but you still want to be involved.
Exactly. I see so many people and it's you just see the expensive purses and shoes and look, I have a wife who loves all that stuff, but we have a really strict budget. And she shops on Poshmark and all these used places. So she never buys retail. But when I see some of these things online, I'm like, oh my God. I feel like, oh my God, you could have saved 5 dogs, with
oh, I know.
that purse, or you could feed you could make sure a whole city of children never went without lunch, with a, I don't know, that's what goes on.
I put everything in terms of how many student loan payments.
Yeah. And as PMU.
So I have a friend who's she's all name brand. She does buy retail. So she'll have a $5,000 handbag. And I'm like, okay, that's how many student loan payments that I could make just with that one handbag.
Right. And we're kind of like, man, we do it in terms of like eyebrows. Oh, that's like 10 eyebrows. Oh my God, I'd have to tattoo 10. Right. That's only 5 eyebrows. I mean, what the hell?
But then you also have to remember, if it's only 5 eyebrows, it's like you don't get to the $750 or whatever that you charge is not going $750 in your pocket.
Yeah,
because we have Uncle Sam and we've got expenses and we've got stuff like that.
And that was a big, huge thing for me. Like, when we first launched our store, you would see like how much sales it generated like your first year, and you think you're like, me and Kat are like, oh my God, I'm calling my dad. And we're like so excited. But then we sit down with our attorney, our accountant.
Like, net income.
And you're like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, it was a shock. It was like, I was godsmacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Well, and that's as your audience is hiring a CPA, is to ask that question and say, of what I'm charging, how much am I actually putting in my pocket? Because I had a client who asked her CPA that question, and she was like, it was like max 20%.
Yeah.
So she had to work that, many multiples of times more to actually make so that really helps reset recalibrate your mindset on that kind of thing.
Oh, big time, Gina. And I don't think people look at their money that way, their revenue that way. They don't dissect it and analyze it that way.
We're taught to play the recorder and not what a mortgage is. Like
Yeah.
There's luckily now, kids growing up these days are starting to get more financial literacy education because they're acknowledging like nobody plays the recorder professionally. So can we just can that part of the
maybe no more home ec and baking pies, right? I mean,
although depending on
yeah, but that's not a bad thing to learn how to make pies. It's
right.
not a bad thing. But okay, what about like calculus and algebra?
Right.
I mean, maybe instead of that, I mean, who's going to use that in their real life? Me and Kat were just talking about that the other day. I mean, certainly not me, and probably 90% of the people are going to be out there using calculus.
Right.
Why not teach them how to balance a checkbook and savings and net profit versus gross profit and the credit card responsibility and interest and things like that? I think those things are way more important and should be focused on in schools rather than.
Agreed. And now we have to, as grown-ups, figure all that stuff out.
You got to figure out on your own.
Because it's not like, there are places that you can go for that kind of stuff, but people don't offer because you are running a business, you don't have time.
Yeah, and let's face it, you're 20.
We come back to running a business, you don't have time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So how are we doing on time, Olivia? Because my clock doesn't have a battery, I just noticed.
We're at 27.
All right, so let me ask you one more question.
Okay.
Okay, be careful with the answer. No, I said you could drop an F-bomb if you wanted.
Okay, I heard you do one.
Did I do one?
Can I do one?
You can do one, and you might do one on this next question. This is a good
Here we go. All right, let me.
And then don't let me forget, you guys, because I want to give all our listeners your name and your contact information, because I know if I love you and trust you with my business and my contracts and my money and my safety, because it is a thing of safety. I think a lawyer saves your ass, keeps you safe. I feel all those things about you. I think everybody else will too. So I'm referring you
I appreciate that.
to everybody.
Very high praise. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll post all your information for that. Okay, last question. Okay, so what? I gotta ask.
I feel like
because I've done this, Gina. I will admit it. I did it when I was, not as educated in these things, and when I was like, "Fuck that! I'm not spending that much money on a lawyer." You know, I went to the legal online platforms. I don't know if we can mention them, but like the Legal Zooms and there's lots of legal things online.
There are.
Rocket
Lawyer,
all these things. I did that years and years ago.
How did it go?
Well, it's more generic and trying to get questions answers because, like I said, I'm a manic thinker, so I end up with a lot of questions, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. But what as a lawyer, what's your take on those? Is it okay in some instances, like for something really super general, or maybe that's not that important? I don't know. is there a time when it's okay? And or just what are your thoughts?
I mean, the thing that's frustrating to lawyers about services like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer is that they are marketed as if there are lawyers that are involved, and like you're getting a lawyer who is handling this for you, and you're paying, a highly discounted rate.
Right.
It's robots, and it's artificial intelligence, and it's nobody who is sitting down going, what are your goals for the company? So even like forming an LLC, there's probably 6 major decisions that go into forming an LLC, which type it is, how you form it, all these kinds of things. And people will check boxes randomly when they form it themselves on Silverflume,
right?
Or they'll do it, which is our Nevada Secretary of State's online portal for anybody who's not in Nevada. But what happens is they'll check this box, and then we get the documents. And we're like, well, why'd you check that box? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you check that box. That means you can't pull any money out of the company for 10 years. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now we have to go fix it.
Right.
So, and truthfully, like I'll admit, I was guilty of that myself. I knew somebody when I was starting my very first company. I knew somebody whose husband was a lawyer. I called him up. He wanted to charge me. I didn't know what number. I didn't have a number in my head that I was anticipating him saying. So I didn't have anything to compare it to. So it didn't matter what number came out of his mouth. It was already too much.
Right.
And I was like, screw this guy. I'm not doing this. I'm going to figure out how to do it on my own. And then I ended up paying a CPA 10 times the money to try to fix what I had created from like a tax perspective. So I'm the poster child for that.
Right.
I did it. I don't recommend it. And there's not a brain behind the questions.
Yeah.
And like people go, oh, well, I downloaded my operating agreement from. I mean, the operating agreement, I just went through it with a client day before yesterday. It took us 2.5 hours to go through and to make the decisions and everything. And
yeah.
And it's hard enough to make those decisions when you're starting a company because you got to look into a crystal ball that doesn't exist.
Right. Well,
and 6 months down the road, things might change.
Well, you don't even understand. You don't even understand the different.
To translate, yeah.
You don't even understand like LLC versus this versus that. What type of corp, a C corp of this or that. You don't even understand what you should be checking and what the consequences of each choice may be down the road. So. Yeah, and so you don't like online services.
So I don't like online services, but I will say, like, if you go to and you have a conversation with a lawyer and a CPA and you get the plan and you want to execute the plan with LegalZoom, like knock yourself out, I guess. But then the thing that makes me mad about LegalZoom is for years until the Nevada Secretary of State made steps 2 and 3 the same step. So you couldn't do step 2 without doing step 3. LegalZoom would only do step 1 and not tell you. So we had people coming to us going, we don't know why our entities are in default because they didn't do step 2 and step 3 because LegalZoom only charged them $99 to form an LLC.
Right.
So we're like, well, the letter they sent you afterwards, you had to go do this and this and this. So that's the kind of stuff. It feels like there's too much hiding of the ball with that.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah. And I think that was, I said that earlier when you asked me, well, how was your experience? And it was like, I just didn't get the attention that I needed. I wasn't getting my question answers. And now it makes sense because it was a bot.
It's a bot. Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was a bot. Because you do. I thought, yeah, it's an attorney on the other end of that computer. Like they just hire, they hired out like a bunch of attorneys maybe to work in their off time to answer questions and do that, for these online services. But now I know it's a bot. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because they have you fill out the form, and we use something similar for expediency purposes. Fill out this form, but we look at it and go, okay, are you sure you want to do a member managed LLC versus a manager managed LLC? Does it make sense? How many partners are you going to have? Do you know how much money you're going to be generating?
Right.
And I just had a call with somebody who apparently LegalZoom, and I just heard the Super Bowl commercial that they do nonprofits. I'm like, there is so much that goes into forming a nonprofit that it is bananas to think that you could do that online.
Yeah, right. Well, I know. And
it's like, just ask a physician when you go to the doctor and you're like, oh, I have this like weird thing on my face.
Well, they have on-demand doctors now,
Well, no, but then people go to WebMD.
Yeah, WebMD.
Which should just be renamed youaredying.com. Because eventually when you get to the end of your search, that will be the diagnosis.
That's funny. Oh my God. Well, geez, I'm really glad you came on. That was really interesting. Yeah. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, will you tell everybody? So Gina Bongiovi.
I'll be like, this is 4-year-old Gina, ready? B as in boy, O, N as in Nancy, G as in George, I, O, V like Victor, I. So Gina at bongiovilaw.com. I'm lawyer Gina on Twitter. Our phone number is 702-485-1200.
Yeah.
We also have a number of articles on our website, on our blog, that are like, one is how to start a business in Las Vegas, which seems counterintuitive. Like, why would I tell you how to do it? But there's lots of blog articles on there. So if you have questions, like, go on, use the search function, see if you can get some questions answered, because I do go through a lot of LLC versus corporation, things like that.
Right.
That you can do some homework on it that's not so intimidating.
Right. Yeah. And then on YouTube, we're going to pin all your information to on the first comment with all your information, a link to your website. And if anybody, if you missed her contact information, they can always message me here at Girlz Inc. Say, hey, what was that girl? Lisa,
what was that broad's name?
Broad's name again, that lawyer girl that you were talking to the other day. So they can always message us, and we'll get them in touch with you. So thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
so taking time out of your day. It's Saturday.
Of course.
Are you going out tonight?
I am.
Where are you going?
I'm going, a friend of mine's husband is the lead singer in a band called Empire Records.
Empire Records.
And they're playing at Sunset Station.
Sunset Station. Okay, because Kat and I, we hit the streets. We do. We're going to a Mexican restaurant tonight. It's up in Summerlin. I can't remember the name of it, but we've been dying to go there.
El Dorado? In Tivoli?
Yes, El Dorado and Tivoli. That's where we're going. We're going with another
Food's
artist,
amazing.
friend of ours. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Yep.
We're so excited. I'm so excited. So, yeah, that's where we're going tonight. And we like live music, too.
Oh, nice.
So we see a ton of live music and rock shows. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that was probably what sucked the most about COVID, is I just really missed live music so much.
I know.
Yeah, my first live show after COVID was One Republic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I cried.
Being in the experience.
Yeah, being in the fucking,
For
just
so
like,
long.
like, Kat looked at me, she goes, are you crying? I'm like, no. She goes, you're crying. I'm like, I was just so fucking happy. I like live music, and it's like One Republic, and I just looking around, and people still had masks on, but I didn't give a shit. It was like, we're just in live music again.
Yeah.
And just it just felt like things, they're starting to get back to normal when there's live music and live shows, because we're a city of live music and shows.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what our city. I've been here 28 years. I wasn't born here, but my best friend Ro Valente was born here.
Oh, nice.
Yes, but I've been here 28 years. I will never leave. They'll bury me here. I love Las Vegas. This is definitely my home. It's a great city, and I love it so much. I have so much to be grateful for. When I talk about Las Vegas, I can get verklempt and get all teary too, because the city means a lot to me. So, yeah. All right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining me today. And just a reminder to check us out on YouTube, and to like and follow our episodes, follow our channel, Tatter-a-fact. Your likes and follows mean a whole lot to us. And if you like streaming only, then you can check us out on Spotify, Podcast Addict, Buzzsprout, and what's the other one? Apple. Thank you, Olivia. Apple Podcasts. And remember, stay in vigilant pursuit of happiness, everybody. And we'll see you next time.